My one job was to look out for her, and that has not happened. And I'm going to keep looking out for her now as best I can.
A man named Joe was just trying to send a nice picture to his mother. He was at the Abaco Inn on Elbow Cay in the Bahamas on the evening of April 4th, 2026. He snapped a photo of the pool area. A vacation shot. Nothing significant. The kind of picture that gets texted and then forgotten. In the background of that photo, there is Lynette Hooker. Black swimsuit. Green cover-up. Still at the resort. Still standing in broad daylight. The timestamp on that photo is 6:34 p.m. That single timestamp, from a photo taken accidentally by someone who had no idea what it would mean, put 3 evidence threads together that had not been fully connected. The timeline as investigators understood it. The timeline that had been described to them. And what the surveillance footage from the Abaco Inn dock captured 4 minutes later at 6:38 p.m. This video follows 3 evidence threads through the last documented hours of Lynette Hooker's life. The photo, the bartender, and what her daughter Carly found when she finally boarded the Soulmate. Subscribe and hit the bell. Because these 3 evidence threads, the photo, the bartender's account, and what Carly found on that boat, connect details that have not been fully examined together until now. Stay with me. Before we follow the evidence, I need to stop. Because in that tourist photo, in the background of a picture Joe was sending to his mother, there is a woman who was fully alive, wearing a green cover-up she loved, standing near a pool in the Bahamian evening light, present in the world, present in her life. 4 minutes from walking toward a dock she would not return from, Lynette Hooker was 55 years old. She was a mother, a grandmother, a woman who built her way to the ocean and called it home. Her daughter Carly ran long-distance races with her. Her mother Darlene drove to Miami and secured an emergency passport the moment she learned her daughter was gone. These are people who love Lynette fiercely and who have not stopped fighting. Every detail in this video matters because of her, not for the investigation. For Lynette. If you are a person of faith, please say a prayer for Lynette Hooker right now. Pray that she is found. Pray for Carly, who flew to the Bahamas and stepped onto a boat that still smelled like her mother, and looked for answers in every corner of it. Pray for Darlene, who is still asking. These 2 women are not giving up, and neither are we. If prayer is not your practice, hold Lynette in your thoughts. Hold her family, because that is why this channel exists, not for the theories. For her. Type Amen in the comments right now. Type her name, Lynette Hooker, so the world keeps seeing it. Type Amen. Then come back. People following this case are watching from the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and beyond. Thank you for being here. Subscribe to Evidence True Crime TV and hit like. Every piece of engagement keeps Lynette's story reaching new people. In about 60 seconds, I'm going to walk you through what Joe's photo shows, what the Abaco Inn surveillance captured 4 minutes later, and why those 2 timestamps together create a gap in the account that has not been publicly resolved. Stay with me. Let me lay the timeline out precisely, because every minute matters in this case. Joe's photo is timestamped at 6:34 p.m. on April 4th, 2026. In the background, Lynette Hooker is visible near the pool area of the Abaco Inn. She is wearing a black swimsuit and a green cover-up. The light in the photo is the light of a Bahamian early evening. Not dusk, not dark. Broad, clear daylight. 4 minutes later, at 6:38 p.m., surveillance footage from the Abaco Inn captured them walking toward the dock. These are the documented timestamps. The photo, the surveillance. Both of them placing Lynette and Brian at the resort, moving toward the water at 6:38 p.m. Now consider the distance. The trip from the Abaco Inn dock to where the Soulmate was anchored is a short one. Sailors familiar with those waters describe it as approximately 10 minutes under normal conditions, perhaps 15 if the water is rough. The trip is not long. It is not complicated. It is a routine crossing that the couple had made many times. At 6:38 p.m. they are on the dock. Daylight. Calm. A 10-minute crossing to the boat. The dinghy was not spotted until the following morning, approximately 9.5 hours later, a 10-minute crossing that produced a 9.5-hour gap. Brian Hooker's account describes engine failure, rough conditions, and a 7-hour ordeal paddling with a single oar before reaching the shoreline of the next island. His attorney has maintained he stands by that account completely. The Royal Bahamas Police Force took that account and investigated it. What Joe's photo and the surveillance footage establish is the starting point of that account. The confirmed departure time, the confirmed daylight conditions, the confirmed brief distance, and then the 9.5 hours of undocumented time that followed. The timeline discrepancy puts an unaccounted for gap between what the resort documented and what was reported to investigators. In about 60 seconds, I'm going to introduce you to Ken Sweeting, the man behind the bar that evening, and what a 20-year veteran bartender noticed in the hours before Lynette disappeared. Stay with me. Ken Sweeting has been behind a bar for 20 years. A career spent reading people, their moods, their dynamics, the things they say and the things they avoid saying. He has served couples celebrating, couples fighting, and couples who are trying very hard to appear as though everything is fine. On the afternoon of April 4th, Ken was working the bar at the Abaco Inn. At approximately 4:30 p.m., Brian Hooker came up to the bar alone. Lynette did not stop. She walked past the bar, heading toward the pool and out of Ken's sight. Brian ordered drinks, Cuba Libres, Bacardi and Coke, 2 rounds. 4 drinks total. About an hour and a half later, Brian returned. This time shirtless. He had come from the pool, or the water. He was apologetic and social. He told Ken he was sorry for being at the bar without a shirt, noting that the resort was busy, and he knew it was almost dinner time. He complimented the speed of the service. Ken described him as buzzing, relaxed, in a notably positive frame of mind for a man who, within hours, would be reporting his wife missing. Now, I want to be careful here about what this observation means, and what it does not mean. Ken Sweeting is not a forensic analyst. His account is the account of a witness who observed a person's demeanor at one point in an evening. It does not establish guilt or innocence. It does not tell us what happened on the water. What it does provide is a behavioral data point that investigators are trained to collect and contextualize. In cases involving an alleged accident, the behavior of the surviving party in the hours immediately before and after the incident is standard investigative territory. Not because normal behavior proves anything on its own, but because the pattern of behavior across the full timeline becomes part of the evidentiary picture. Ken noticed something else. Lynette, while Brian was at the bar being social and visible, was by the pool. Quiet. Barely noticed by staff. That contrast. One partner highly visible and making an impression, the other almost invisible, is a detail investigators note. Ken told reporters that when he learned what had happened that same night, he was not just surprised. He was deeply suspicious. He said in a place like Elbow Cay, people do not just vanish into the blue without a trace. That is Ken Sweeting's account. On the record, from a person who was present. And it is the account of the last documented interaction with the couple before they walked toward the dock at 6:38 p.m. Let me spend time on the geography, because it is central to understanding the questions this investigation has been asking. Elbow Cay in the Abacos is not open ocean. It is an island environment, surrounded by channels, shallow flats, visible shorelines, and landmarks that experienced sailors navigate by instinct. The waters between the Abaco Inn dock and the Soulmate's anchorage are well charted. Local mariners know them in the way people know the streets of their own neighborhoods. When Carly Ellsworth and her boyfriend Steve visited the area after Lynette's disappearance, Steve noted something specific about the water near the channel pilings. In the area where the incident is reported to have occurred, the water to one side of the channel was approximately 2 to 3 feet deep, even at high tide. A tender, the small, lightweight dinghy used for short trips between shore and a larger vessel, can navigate in 18 inches of water. It does not require depth. It does not require an engine. Local mariners who know those waters have been consistent in their assessment. They look at the reported drift distance, approximately 4 to 6 miles, and at the reported time, 9 hours, and say those two numbers do not match the conditions that night. Their assessment, offered to investigators and reporters, is that even accounting for a dead motor and difficult paddling conditions, that distance in those waters should have taken 2 to 3 hours at most. That leaves approximately 6 hours unaccounted for in Brian Hooker's reported 9-hour ordeal. Brian's account also describes being driven away from Lynette by wind and current. His attorney stands by that account completely. What the local mariner's analysis raises as an investigative question, and it is labeled clearly as community and local analysis, not confirmed investigative finding, is whether the geography of those specific waters is consistent with the described inability to reach shore or a shallow area during that window. There is also the question of the yacht's movement. Standard maritime protocol in a man overboard or missing person situation is to maintain your vessel's position as a reference point and beacon. The Soulmate was moved from its original anchorage in the period following Lynette's disappearance. That movement has been noted by investigators and by Carly, who observed that the one consistent landmark Lynette would have been looking for had been relocated. None of this is a verdict. Brian Hooker's account may have an explanation for every one of these details that has not been made public. The investigation is active precisely because these questions require answers that only the full forensic record can provide. But the geography, the timestamps, and the local knowledge of those waters form a documented set of questions that this investigation has not yet answered publicly. And they are the questions Carly Ellsworth has been asking since the morning she received that voicemail. In about 60 seconds, I am going to take you onto the Soulmate itself through Carly's eyes. What she found on that boat is something that has stayed with her since the moment she stepped on board. Stay with me. For 14 days after Lynette disappeared, Carly Ellsworth waited in the Bahamas for answers that were not coming. 14 days of watching the official account and the community response and the investigation develop, while the boat her mother had called her home sat moored in Marsh Harbor. Brian Hooker had already left. He had traveled back to Sacramento, citing a family situation that required his attention. His attorney has stated the reason for his departure. The investigation remained active in his absence. When Carly finally boarded the Soulmate, she was not doing it lightly. She was walking into her mother's world, a compressed, intimate floating home that still held every trace of the person who had lived there. Try to imagine that for a moment, not as a crime scene. As a mother's home, her clothes still folded, her personal items exactly as she had left them. The smell of the interior still carrying her presence in a way that photographs cannot capture. Lynette's life, completely paused, with only Lynette missing from it. Carly was not alone. Her boyfriend Steve was with her, and together they walked through every inch of that boat looking for the thing that would help them understand what had happened to the woman they loved. The first thing Carly found that stopped her was the necklace. A gold chain with a diamond L, Lynette's signature piece. She wore it every single day. In the photos from the deck of the Soulmate, it is there. In the videos from the Abaco Islands, it is there. It was as much a part of Lynette's appearance as anything else she owned. It was sitting in the cabin, untouched, left behind. Carly's observation about the necklace is not a forensic analysis. It is the observation of a daughter who knew her mother. People do not typically remove their most consistently worn personal jewelry before a short dinghy ride back to their own boat. It is a small trip, a routine crossing, not a situation that prompts taking off a necklace you wear every day. The necklace being in the cabin raises a question investigators would ask about what Lynette's state of mind and intentions were in the moments before she left the boat that evening, or whether she had removed it at some other point. It does not answer that question, but the question deserves to be in the public record. Then there were the headbands. Carly told reporters that her mother lived in her headbands. They were constant. They were part of her daily identity in the way that small personal habits become inseparable from a person. Carly walked off the Soulmate wearing one of them. She said it herself. It was a desperate, heartbreaking attempt to hold on to a piece of her mother who was becoming, in the eyes of the official investigation, a case file rather than a person. And then deep in the hold, the picture frame. Carly had painted it herself. A small hand-painted frame, a personal gift to her mother. a quiet token of their bond. Something Lynette had carried with her across thousands of miles of ocean, from the Gulf Coast to the Caribbean to the Bahamas, because it was from her daughter, and she kept what mattered to her close. It was sitting there undisturbed, exactly where Lynette had placed it, untouched, waiting. Carly said that finding that frame confirmed something she had already begun to believe. This was not a woman who had made peace with not coming back. Everything about Lynette's life was present on that boat. She was the only thing missing from it. I need to pause here, because this is the moment I ask for your support. Carly walked onto that boat and found her mother's whole life still there. If that matters to you, if Lynette's story matters to you, subscribe to Evidence True Crime TV right now and hit like. Type Amen in the comments for Lynette. And stay. Because what Brian's departure from the Bahamas means, and where the investigation stands right now, is the final piece of this picture. Brian Hooker returned to Sacramento, California, in the days following Lynette's disappearance. His attorney, Terrell Butler, confirmed the reason for his departure as a family situation requiring his attention. Butler also stated publicly, and on the record, that Brian categorically and unequivocally denies any wrongdoing in connection with Lynette's disappearance. She stated he is hopeful that Lynette will be recovered. Brian was subsequently arrested by the Royal Bahamas Police Force on April 8th on probable cause. He was questioned over several days and released on April 14, 2026. The Royal Bahamas Police Force stated the decision to release him was made in coordination with the Department of Public Prosecutions, which recommended no charges be filed at this time, pending the outcome of further investigations. At this time, those words carry the full weight of where this case sits. The investigation has not closed. Brian Hooker can be rearrested if the evidentiary picture develops to the charging threshold. The U.S. Coast Guard criminal probe, a federal investigation opened parallel to the Bahamian inquiry, remains active. Federal investigations bring forensic resources and legal tools that a single Bahamian proceeding would not access alone. Investigators are examining the devices seized from the Soulmate under warrant, the bar receipts, the surveillance footage from the dock, the geographic and title data from the evening of April 4th, and Lynette's Apple Watch, which, as we covered in Case File 026, has been recovered and contains a continuous biometric record of every physical event her body experienced that evening, timestamped to the second. Carly Ellsworth has not stopped. She has been interviewed by the U.S. Coast Guard for approximately 2 hours. Her attorney said the family was relieved to see serious investigative attention brought to bear, and that the family is going to let the wheels of justice turn and see where the evidence leads. Darlene Hamlet is not stopping. The mother who drove to Miami, secured an emergency passport, and flew to the Bahamas to demand answers in person is still demanding them. The investigation is not over. 2 parallel probes. Active forensic analysis. A family that will not go quiet. 2 investigations. Active. The ledger of what happened on the water that evening is incomplete in its public form. But it is not incomplete to the people who are building it. In about 60 seconds. I am going to close on what Lynette left behind on that boat, and why this channel is not stopping. Stay with me. The necklace with the diamond L. The headbands. The hand-painted picture frame from her daughter. Everything that made the Soulmate a home, rather than just a boat, still there. Undisturbed. Waiting. Lynette Hooker was 55 years old. She called the ocean her happy place. She documented sea turtles and manatees, because she wanted to share what she loved. She ran long-distance races with her daughter. She spent months in Gulf Coast heat, building a life she was proud of, and then sailed it into the most beautiful waters on Earth. She left everything behind on that boat, and the people who love her are still asking why. If you have any information related to the disappearance of Lynette Hooker, please contact the Royal Bahamas Police Force at +1 242 3224444. Or the U.S. Coast Guard at 1-800-368-5647. Lynette Hooker is not forgotten. Carly and Darlene are not stopping. And neither are we. Before you go, 3 things. 1. Subscribe to Evidence True Crime TV. 2. Like this video. 3. Drop your answers in the comments. Type Amen for Lynette and her family first. Then tell me, what detail in this video stops you every time you think it through? The photo? The necklace? The 9.5 hours? Tell me in the comments. Type Amen. Subscribe, and be here when the next development breaks. We will keep watching. We will keep reporting. And Lynette Hooker is not forgotten.